Keir Starmer arrived in the Commons in the mood for cracking dad jokes. He kicked off Prime Minister's questions by paying tribute to a great hero of Manchester who is moving on after a decade. No, of course he wasn't talking about Andy Burnham and his cunning plan to come to Westminster and oust him from Downing Street. He was paying tribute to Pep Guardiola. Aye! So this is the sort of mood we had today. The football-loving PM also congratulated his beloved Arsenal for winning the title after more than 2 decades in the wilderness, something which he was once praised for doing with the Labour Party. But anyway, he also had another gag to deploy, this time at Hannah Spencer, the former plumber turned Green Party politician who dealt Labour such a humiliation in the Gorton and Denton by-election. Because Miss Spencer was having her first ever question at Prime Minister's Questions, and she stood up to complain about MPs drinking on the job, but Keir had his gag ready. He alluded to Green Party leader Zach Polansky's past when he lived on a houseboat and about his tax arrangements, saying that while Greens think their leader walks on water, it turns out he lives on water and doesn't pay council tax. And whoa, I mean, Jerry Seinfeld is probably not worried about a new rival on the global comedy circuit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, in Gorton and Denton, we have to pay full price for a pint. But here, for some reason, it's cheaper, and some MPs drink before voting. And that really shocked me when I came to Parliament, because it is our workplace. Now, does the Prime Minister agree with his own MPs who've defended their right to drink cheap alcohol at work? Or does he agree with me that MPs shouldn't be drinking on the job, given that we vote on huge things like the climate crisis, disabled people's rights, housing, child poverty? Sort your policies out.
Can I firstly welcome her to our place, because I think this is her first PMQ. Look, there are going to be different views on whether people should be able to enjoy a drink here or not. But I think we can agree that the majority of people in this country want an economy that works for them, public services that are there when they need them, and every child going as far as their talent or ability will take them. But the only way to deliver that is through a Labour government, as we are doing. And I know the Greens think that their leader walks on water. It turns out that he just lives on water and doesn't pay his council tax.
But perhaps he was so cheerful because he'd come to PMQs with what passes for good news these days in Starmer's Britain. He told the country's cash-strapped drivers that the government was not about to launch a tax raid. And he said hauliers would get a 12-month road tax holiday, and he was backing drivers by extending the freeze in fuel duty for the rest of the year. So they've got something to look forward to later on. And the hitch was that Kemi Badenoch hadn't come into the Commons with any intention of joining in a comedy routine. She was there to roast the Labour leader, and she seemed genuinely incensed by reports that the government has loosened sanctions on Russian oil refined into diesel and jet fuel in third countries as prices spiral. And the Tory leader considers it idiotic that this is happening when new oil and gas exploration is banned in Britain's North Sea fields. So she said, why is it acceptable to have Russian oil but not Aberdeen oil? And she told Sir Keir he was choosing to buy dirty Russian oil, and the money would be used to fund the killing of Ukrainian soldiers. And more people are buying Russian oil because British oil is not being drilled, she said. So these are lines that have that ring of sort of common sense that she so loves to do. Now, Sir Keir said she got the wrong end of the stick, that this was a new package of sanctions against Russia, and the last government had phased in sanctions in a similar way. But Mrs Badenoch was having none of it, saying that being patronising was not a substitute for understanding a policy, and she accused him of backsliding on Ukraine, which is probably one of the areas where he hopes he will have a legacy.
And then, late last night, Mr. Speaker, the government snuck out an announcement that it was removing sanctions on Russian oil. So can the Prime Minister explain why oil from Russia is acceptable, but oil from Aberdeen is not?
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me address the sanctions head on. Because we have been united across this House on these issues since the beginning of the conflict. What we announced yesterday was a strong new package of new sanctions, going well beyond existing sanctions. So it's a new package. This includes new bans on maritime services on LNG and new bans on refined oil products from Russia. We also issued 2 targeted short-term licences to phase the new sanctions in and to protect UK consumers. Mr. Speaker, that is standard practice. This government has phased in sanctions in this way before, and the last government used exactly the same technique when they introduced sanctions. And when they did so, Mr. Speaker, we supported them because we could see the sanctions were the right thing to do to bear down on Russia. So these are new sanctions being phased in. This is not a question of lifting existing sanctions in any way whatsoever, and we will continue to work with our allies on further sanction packages.
It's a very weak set of cheers from the MPs who are trying to get rid of him, could I just say. Mr. Speaker, he doesn't know what he is talking about. This level of processology is not going to get him out of these difficult answers, OK? Let me tell him what is going on. Labour are giving money to Russia, Reform are taking money from Russia. There's only one party that is standing up to Russia, and that is the Conservative Party. I cannot believe that he's actually saying that he's doing something good on the war in Ukraine. What's he talking about? This morning, Ukraine's sanction chief disagrees with what the Prime Minister's approach is. That's what Ukraine is saying. In March, when the United States eased sanctions on Russia, the Prime Minister said all partners should maintain pressure on Russia and its war chest. The Prime Minister said our sanctions remain, and there is no question about that. What's changed?
She gives every sign of thinking that Sir Keir is in the final days of his career and wants to deal the knockout blow. There was almost a touch of Margaret Thatcher to her. Clad in blue, she blasted him for nationalising steel, contemplating price freezes, saying it's like the Soviets won. The Tories are enjoying the spectacle of Labour toppling a leader. Esther McVey asked whether the Prime Minister agreed with Andy Burnham when he said he wanted to rejoin the EU, or whether he agreed with Andy Burnham when he said he didn't want to join the EU. That got a good response amongst the Brexiteer crowds, but there were painful jabs as well. Fellow barrister Carl Turner said that people in Number 10 had smeared him about his mental health. Sir Keir said this shouldn't happen to anyone. But it was a reminder of just how grubby politics can be, the nasty side of this business. Deep down, perhaps a part of the Prime Minister may be looking forward to getting out of Number 10.